Are we living in a land where sex and horror are the new gods? Yeah. When times are going, I'll bring us all you to stop.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. But before I get going, I'd like to go through the chat and just welcome everyone to the Mods and Rockers story. So first, I want to give a shout out to this man, Gerard. Gerard, good to see you. Glad you're here. Janie, thank you for coming. Paulie, as always, my main man, is always here. Good to see you. Delilah, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Dave T, as always, good to see you. So what I'm gonna do is first off just give you a breakdown of what this is going to be about. So I'm going to be covering the mods and the rockers. So you've got the two factions. I'll be covering the rockers, then touching on their bikes. I won't be going into too much depth in and around every nuts and bolt, but just an overview, mainly focusing on a couple of the models around from the 1960s. Then from that, want to do a special shout out and then do the mods as well. Go over their subculture. I'll go over their bikes, and then I'll talk about the famous Battle of Britain, Battle of Brighton Beach, should I say, which is a story which everyone sort of focuses on. So I just really want to just welcome you all. Hello, Asada. Good to see you. So what we're going to do now is as I'm going through, I'll just hit videos. I won't introduce them because I like to use illustrations and music in my content. So I just wanted to make sure that if YouTube decides to hack the video apart, it seems a bit seamless, you know. Hello there, Don Mika. Good to see you, my friend. Right. So before we get going, there's just something else I really want to do first. So here we go. All right. I said with Il Toro, thank you for joining us. And D Martin, thank you for joining the show. So, first of all, I'm going to touch on is the Rockers. The Rockers, also known as the Leather Boys or the Ton Up Boys, are members or followers of the bike subculture that originated in the United Kingdom in the late 50s and was very popular in the 60s as well. And it was mainly centered on motorcycles, rock and roll music. And by 1965, they were used called by a term called as known as greasers. That had also been introduced to Great Britain. And since then, the term greaser and rocker have been synonymous within the British Isles. Now, although used differently in North America and elsewhere, rockers were all derisively known as the coffee cowboys. Now, okay, so now the origins, until the post-war period, motorcycling held a prestigious position and enjoyed a positive image in British society, being associated with wealth and glamour. Now, starting in the 50s, the working class were able to buy inexpensive motor cars, so that motorcycle became transport for the poor. Now, the rocker subculture came about due to factors such as the end of the post-war rationing in the UK. Now, a general rise in prosperity for working class use, the recent availability of credit and finance for young people, the influence of American popular music and films, and the construction of racetrack-like arterial roads around British cities. Okay, see, we can see here now that the basis of how this group is development is, and it's pretty much, as I say, from the working class background. Now, the development of transport CAFs and a peak in British motorcycle engineering, the name rocker came not from music, but from the rockers found in the four-stroke engines, as opposed to the two-stroke engines used by scooters and ridden by the mods. So during the 50s, the Tone Up Boys was an English slang for driving at a speed of 100 miles per hour. The Rockers or Tone Up Boys took what was essentially a sport and turned it into a lifestyle, a fashion, sort of getting themselves away from the mainstream society. So, and it was a rebel movement where they were across the societies. This damaged the public image of the motorcycling in the UK. Oh well. Now the mass media started targeting these socially powerless youths and cast them as folk devils, creating a moral panic through highly exaggerated and ill-founded portrayals. So from the 60s on, due to the media fury surrounding the mods and rockers, motorcycling use became more commonly known as rockers, a term previously little known outside small groups. Now, the public came to consider rockers as hopelessly naive, loutish, scruffy, motorised cowboys, loners, or outsiders. So the rocker subculture was associated with the 50s and the early 60s rock and roll music. Music by artists such as, Eddie Cochran, Chuck Berry, George Melly. Now, originating in the 1950s, there was a term called the calf racer, where bikers often frequented transport CAFs, using them as starting and finishing points for road races. A CAF racer is a motorcycle that has been modified for speed and good handling rather than for comfort. Features including a single racing seat, low handlebars, one-sided clip-ons mounted directly onto the front forks for control and aerodynamics. Large racing petrol tanks often were polished and left unpainted. Swept back exhaust pipes, rear set foot pegs, with or without half or full racing fairings. Now, these motorcycles were lean, light, and handled various road surfaces well. The most defining machine of the rocker heyday was the Triton, which was a custom motorcycle made of a Norton featherbed frame and a Triumph Bonneville engine. It used the common and fastest races engine combined with the best handling frame of its day. Other popular motorcycle brands included BSA, Royal Enfield, and Matchless. Now, the term cafe racers is also known It's also used to describe motorcycle riders who prefer vintage British, Italian, or Japanese bikes from the 50s to the late 70s. And these modern racers do not resemble the rockers of earlier decades. And they dress in more modern and comfortable style with only a hint of lightness to the rocker style, nor do they share the passion of the 50s rock and roll. So these modern cafe racers have taken elements of the American grease, British rocker and modern style rider styles to create the look of their own. Rockers in the 2000s tend still to ride classic British motorcycles. However, classically styled European cafes are also seen, such as Moto Guzzi and Ducati. Now, the characteristics around rockers brought standard factory-made motorcycles and stripped them down, tuning them up and modifying them to appear like racing bikes. Their bikes were not merely transport, but they were used as an object of intimidation and masculinity, projecting them uneasily close to death, an element of exaggerate by their use of skull and crossbone type symbolisms. Now, rockers first seen in the United States and then England, the rocker fashion style was born out of necessity and practicality. Rockers were more heavily decorated leather motorcycle jackets and often adorned metal studs, patches, pin badges, and sometimes an SO gasman trinket. When they rode their motorcycles, they usually wore no helmet or wore classic open face helmet, aviator goggles, and a white silk scarf. Now, other common items include t-shirts, leather caps, Levi's or Wrangler jeans, leather trousers, tall motorcycle boots, or brothel creepers, beetle crushers. Also popular was a patch declaring membership of the 59 Club of England, a church-based, youth-based organisation that later formed into a motorcycle club with members all over the world. Now, the rocker's hairstyle, it's kept in place with brill cream, but was also usually a tame, exaggerated, like a pompadour hairstyle, and was popular with some 1950s rock and roll musicians. Now, largely due to their clothes and styles and dirtiness, the rockers were not widely welcomed by venues such as pubs and dance halls. Rockers also transformed rock and roll dancing into more violent, individualistic form beyond the control of dancehall management. They were generally revelled by the British motorcycle industry and general enthusiasts as being an embarrassment and bad for the industry of the sport. So the rockers' look and attitude sort of did influence pop groups in the 60s, such as the Beatles, as well as hard rock and punk rock bands and fans in the late 1970s. The look of the tone-up boy and rocker was accurately portrayed in the 1964 film The Leather Boys. Now, the rocker subculture has also influenced the rockabilly revival and the psychobilly subculture. Many contemporary rockers still wear engineering boots and full-length motorcycle boots, but winkle pickers are no longer common. Some wear brothel creepers or combat boots. Rockers have continued to wear leather motorcycle jackets, often adorned with patches, studs, spikes, and painted artwork, jeans or leather trousers and white silk scarves, leather caps adorned with metal studs and chains. Common among rockers in the 50s and 60s are rarely seen anymore. Instead, some contemporary rockers wear a classic woolen flat cap. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there. I just want to have a chat. Welcome, Krumel. Thank you for coming. Good to see you. Yeah. Yankees for life. You too as well, my friend. Good to see you too. I just want to quickly do something while I've got there. Okay. Yeah, Yankees for life. If you type something. Now, rockers reunions. In the early 70s, the British rocker and hardcore motorcycle scene fractured and evolved under new influences coming from California, the hippies and the Hells Angels, and the remaining rockers became known as greasers, and the scene had all but died out. Now, in the early 80s, a rockers revival was started, and a handful of original rockers. They organised rocker reunion dances called piss-ups, which attracted individuals as far as Europe. Now, the first rocker reunion motorcycle run of 30 British classic motorcycles rode to Battersea, home of the Chelsea Bridge Boys. It was a famous hangout they were. Following runs went into other destinations, historic relevances to rockers such as Brighton. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go stop my cam. I'm going to go and talk about the bikes. Okay. So first off, the rockers' bikes. Okay, just going to present my screen to you all. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, I wanted to try and keep it where I'm just keeping to the models around the 60s, where I'm going to touch later on about the Battle of Brighton Beach. So this is going to be the first port of call. I just want to really start talking about the Harley Davidson. That's the one that everyone knows. So the model is the 1960 year model. So Harley offered 4 versions of the Duo Glide. Okay, one of which was the high compression FLH 74CI, which was called the Super Sport model and was offered with a foot shift and hand shift option. The foot shift model was actually listed as the FLHF, and F at the end indicated the foot shift option, but surprisingly the F was never stamped in the engine case. This very nice example has been completely restored using the correct 1038 CP hardware throughout, was painted in the correct Skyliner blue and birch white ivory. Other options included front and rear crash bars, original black bubble bags, saddle bags and luggage rack, remote oil filter and a nice black leather solo seat. Now the motor and gearbox have undergone a complete rebuild, and the motorcycle has very few miles on it, as shown in the restored original speedometer. This is a very nice bike, So the Harley Davidson was one of the bikes obviously used by the rockers. So now I want to touch on and speak about some of the other bikes. So we've got the next bike. What I want to speak about is the Triton. Sorry, this one, I beg your pardon, the Norton. Okay. So the Norton itself, now the early history of the Norton, it's pretty much, so if we go talking from the Norton Villas, so in 1966, there we go, beg your pardon. So I'm going to speak in 1960. A new version of the road-going featherbed frame was developed, in which the upper frame rails were bent inwards to reduce width between the rider's knees for greater comfort, and the move was to accommodate the shorter rider. And the wide frame made it difficult to reach the ground. Now, this frame was also known as the slimline frame, and earlier frames then became known as the wide line. Now, as I mentioned, you've got the last Manx Norton, and that was last sold in 1963. Even though Norton had pulled out the Grand Prix in '54, the race at Bracebridge Street continued until 1962. So these were mainly racing bikes. They were used in racing, but they were also adopted by the lot of the rockers. So I'm going to just touch a little bit further on it about these bikes in the 60s. So in the 1966, the AMC became insolvent and was reformed as Norton Villas, which is sort of what we're sort of looking at here now. So in 1967, the Commando prototype was shown at Earls Court in November and introduced as a production model for 1968. Its styling, innovative isolistic frame and powerful engine made it an appealing package. So the Commando easily outperformed contemporary Triumphant and BSA twins and was the most powerful and best handling British motorcycle on its day. Now, the isolated frame made it much smoother than the Atlas, and it used rubber bushings to isolate the engine and swing arm from the frame, forks, and rider. However, as the steel shims incorporated in the isoelastic bearings wore, often from rusting, the bike became prone to poor handling, fishtailing in high speed turns. So the next bike I'd like to cover as well is, as I mentioned earlier, which was the Triton, which is used by the rockers. Okay, so basically Triton motorcycles were hybrid motorcycles built from the 1950s to the 1970s that involved fitting Triumph engines and Norton frames. Because no factory offered Triton motorcycles, they were typically privately built. However, some UK dealers offered complete bikes. The aim was to combine the best elements of each marque and thus gain a bike superior to either. The name Triton is a contraction of Triumph and Norton. Triton was the name of an ancient Greek god. Now, during the period in which Triton motorcycles were constructed, the Norton featherbed frame was regarded as the best handling frame. Triton bikes aimed to combine the best engine with the best frame by replacing the standard Norton engine with a Triumph and parallel twin engine. Although best is subjective, a popular engine choice was the Triumph and Bonneville unit with the twin carburetors and twin camshafts. The push-rod engine gave good performance and reliability and would be more easily tuned for the greater power using high-profile camshafts, high-compression pistons and twin carburetors. In due course, a Westlake 8-valve head became available for the Triumph motor. Okay. So I'm just going to quick pause there, just to make sure the chat's still with me. Good to see you, See No Evil. Thank you for coming. Okay. Let's do this. If you start typing. See No Evil, we just had an upgrade. Okay, so the Triumph engine is seen as an upgrade because the Norton 650 and 750 vertical engines were known to have reliability problems at 7,000 revs per RPM. The piston exceeds the engineering limit for piston speed, so over-revving soon destroys the engines. Now, the BSA 650 had a bronze brush main bearing on the right-hand side, doubling as the crank oil feed with a lack of effective crankshaft end plate control and had difficulty staying together when ridden hard, even though the rest of the design was more possibly robust than Triumph. The Triumph vertical twin used a ball on the timing side and a roll on the other, with the oil feeding through a separate bronze brush in the outer right-hand side cover. Okay. So just wanted to cover up, I've covered there on the rocker subculture, and I've covered the bikes. So what I want to do now as well is this. I'm doing this live. This is for my auntie's husband, who sadly passed away this year. And I just really wanted to, give a chance to give him a shout out because he was a rocker. So I'm just going to do a few slides now. This slide you're seeing here, this was near me in Watford. This was at the Busy Bee Transport Cafe that's no longer there. So this was like a rockers hangout. So as you know, I'm a Watford boy, and the mods and rockers story was around here before my time in the 1960s, and there were many places that the rockers would frequent. Now, the Ace Cafe is a famous place, which is on the North Circular. It's just outside Watford. It's mainly London. But as I mentioned as well, this is the Busy Bee Transport Cafe, which was on the A41, which is now a hotel. So, yeah, there's a little bit of memory there. So I just want to take this time just to put this picture there, just in memory of Graham Howse. He's a good man. Okay. So now I'm just going to leave you.
All the week long, and now my house is empty and my folks are gone. Woo! Come on, everybody. Oh, I'm a baby's number one, but I'm gonna dance with three or four. She got in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, way back up in the woods among the evergreens. There stood a log cabin made of earth and wood. I found my freedom on Blueberry Hill, on Blueberry Hill. When I found you, I love all of my kissing. You don't know what you've been missing, oh boy. Oh boy, when you with me, oh boy. Oh boy, the whole world can see that you are what I meant for me. All of my life I've been waiting. Tonight there'll be no hesitating, no boy. Oh boy. You are my special angel, sent from up above. Along.
That's okay. Just a bit there. I just want to address the chat because I know some of you are talking away. Thank you, Otoro. I appreciate that. Okay, my Blueberry Hill. Wow. No, Gerard. We're just getting onto the mods yet. We've just done the rockers. Okay, Crewmel. Wow, you got your Liberator. We're at 15. Oh, good stuff. Dave T. I love the old rock and roll. It's good stuff. Right. Now I'm going to get on and I'm going to start talking about Gerard's favourite gang, the mods. Now, emerging in the early 60s, the modernists were an aspirational subculture of young men and women who dressed smartly and beautifully as a statement of rebellion against the austerity of their parents' generation, eventually morphing into the swinging 60s. Now, this generation of youngsters helped define the teenager, explore the history of this movement from Soho's backstreets to national screen. Now, the mod subculture emerged, as I said, in the 1960s. Mods created a vibrant underground youth scene through a set of selected nightclubs and boutiques through the city, with many located in the West End Soho district. In the post-war, post-rationing and post-national conscription era, teenage mods had more disposable income and leisure time than the previous generations and made the most of both. Through a sharp tailored clothing style and energetic danceable music from the United States and Jamaica, they sought to reinvent what it meant to be young, modern and British. A leading London mod, Pete Meaden, described the subculture as clean living under difficult circumstances because it was a lifestyle that motivated working class youth to dedicate that money they had to cultivating a smart, turned out appearance. Now, the mod subculture's origins can be traced back to the late 1950s. A group of young Londoners took to calling themselves modernists due to their love of modern jazz and streamlined style and cool sophistication of the African American musicians who were its stars. Now, by the early 1960s, a new generation of the image obsessed cohort shortened the name, now calling themselves mods. The evolution was also punctuated by a change in musical preferences, as modern jazz was soon replaced with other genres of music from across the Atlantic, whether American rhythm and blues, soul, or Jamaican bluebeat. Now, an obsession with hard-to-find music from abroad was complemented with an equally prevalent preoccupation with the continental style. Mob boys wanted to outpace the moneyed classes by wearing sharp tailored suits resembling those worn in Italy or France. Similarly, their hairstyles mirrored European trends. Through longer than the traditional short back and sides, sported by the older generations. The French crew, for example, was still a neat and clean look. Girls were also drawn to the subculture early on, attracted as they were to the energetic music and the scene's focus on style. While the boys wore sharp, tasteful suits, they were covered by parkas when riding their Italian Vespa or Lamboretta brand scooters. The girls also adopted clean lines, whether in matching tops and skirts or fitted dresses, all of which favoured hemlines or above the knee. Female mods sometimes had hairstyles not dissimilar to those of the boys, while others sported chin or shoulder length bobs. Carnaby Street in London's West End became the preferred shopping district for male mods who began frequenting shops such as John Stevens, Mod Mail, His Clothes, and John Michael. Now, as the subculture style soon influenced local female designers, mod girls gravitated to Mary Quant's Boutique Bazaar in the King's Road, Chelsea, and Barbara Halunicki's Bieber in Kensington. Okay. Now, mods lived for the weekend and often spending from dusk until dawn dancing at various clubs for their DJs hosted all-nighters. For some, this meant the energy-boosting amphetamines needed to keep the party going. The scene opened in 1963 and located in Soho's Ham Yard was an underground venue that became the most popular nightclub among London mods during the early 60s. Similarly, frequented Soho haunts included the Flamingo, where Georgie Fame and the Blue Flames were regular performers, and by 1964, the 100 Club, other notable venues including the neighbouring Marquee in Wardour Street and Harrow's Railway Hotel, where mods might take in gigs by the Yardbirds or the Who on any given night. Now, the Ealing Jazz Club's British Rhythm and Blues nights proved a mainstay, while the Rolling Stones were a regular attraction at Richmond's Crawdaddy. As mod became a nationally adopted subculture between 1963 and 1964, similar venues appeared around the country, such as Manchester's Twisted Wheel, Birmingham's Whiskey A Go Go, and Sheffield's King Mojo Club. Now, by 1964, mods were well known throughout the UK. During that seaside clashes in Brighton, Margate, and Clacton between mods and their rivals, the Rockers, made national news and elicited moral panic among adults. Mod also began to transcend its subculture origins as the world travelled internationally. Outside the UK, it became synonymous with the mainstream British-born youth culture phenomenon like the Beatles and miniskirts. Mod became linked to the culture of swinging London, with Carnaby Street becoming the tourist destination for foreigners seeking out all things hip and of the moment. Now, despite the commercialisation, various facets of the original mod subculture persisted throughout the 1960s, and some scene members and bands like the Small Faces merged mod style with the mid-60s psychedelia. Another group, the Hard Mods, dressed more casually, turned their attention on Jamaican music, and by 1969 transformed into the first skinheads. Still, another cohort of soul-fixated mods in the north of England created what became known as the Northern Soul scene. Though mod is forever linked to the 60s origins and history, the subculture continues to be reimagined today, both within Britain in countries as diverse as Germany, Japan, and Mexico. So now I'm going to touch on, as I mentioned, as I did with the rockers, I will go through some of the bikes. So first off here, okay, my bikes. I'm going to share with you. Okay, present, share, window. Okay, hopefully you can see that now. Well, I'm just going to take this time to quickly in the chat and welcome Chris Chalk. Thank you for coming, sir. Good to see you. Okay, so first off, I want to speak about this model of the Lambretta, the Series 3 Li. Reason we want to touch on that, as I say, we're sort of focusing around the 60s. Lambretta, they made many models, as did a lot of the Rockers bikes. So this particular model, as I say, not this one as such that we're viewing at, but the 3 Series Li. Now the date production, so they were from like December 1961 to November 67. And they reckon that the amount of scooters produced were about 146,000. So the capacity was from 123cc to 148cc. Okay. Gear 4 speeds hand control. And the speed max was roughly about 72 miles an hour. So I think that's about 82 kilometers. So the brakes aluminium fin drum, tank capacity, let's say 8.7 litres. Now, you've got the 1962 L2 type footboard tunnel. Okay. There's a side panel anti-vibration buffers without springs, speedometer cable with small square dial, an electric system with battery, and a single wire off switch. That was version 1. Now, in version 2, around mid-1965, the larger footboard tunnel, okay, side panel anti-vibration buffers without springs, speedometer cable, a large dial, and electrical system without battery and 2 cylinders unified. Side panel anti-vibration buffers fitted with small metal springs. So I know that we've got Gerard in the chat. He probably knows a bit more about these scooters. So I'm just going to, at this point now, going to touch on the Vespa. Okay. So we'll speak a little bit more about the Vespa. Bear with me. Okay. Just quickly, I'm going to quickly have a look at the chat. Okay. So, the Vespa. Obviously, so as we've touched before, beginning in the mid-60s, the mass media began to use the term mod and associating with anything deemed to be popular, fashionable, or modern. Mod was closely connected to the youth movement of the mods or modernists. Now, the mods, they use Vespa to communicate their commitment to breaking standards and carefree fun. Okay, so during that time, the Vespa GS model was often seen on the London streets, irreverently and eccentrically decked out. Riding as a group, the mods conveyed a sense of team spirit and determination, which were characteristics perfectly represented in the mod's unofficial logo, the Union Jack stylus as a target. Now, in 2018, a special capsule collection of the Vespa apparel and lifestyle accessories was created in homage to this youth subculture. The commonly directed referenced the mods, which was most notably reflected in the design of the iconic nation's helmets. Okay. Now, the style revolution triggered by a global adoption of Vespers, as well as the Pickard interest in casual scooter attire, travelled from the street and into the fashion industry, inspiring creative designers and fashion brands, which opened up opportunity for increasingly successful collaborations. Now, Vespa's relationship in the fashion world in terms of vehicle personalisation and fashion collabs was particularly prominent, as I say, and it's more so in this 21st century and has further developed in recent years. So this bike is still used by today, but it's certainly more used in the fashion industry. So now I just want to have a little go through. I just want to go through the chat. Okay, I'll just catch up with everyone because I see it. Gerard he's a mod man. So you mentioned something in here as well, Gerard, which was quite okay. Let's have it's all right. Okay, yeah. So the YZ82 stroke snappy bike. So you had an XR80 first bike and the second bike was a CR125. Okay. I must admit, I'm going to be honest with you, Toro. I'm not a bike. I'm a four-wheel man. But yeah, the bike's no broken bones, thank God. Good man. And you drive a Kawasaki today. Oh, excellent. Fair play. I just want to go through here as well. Because Gerard, you as well mentioned, did you say that the Lamborettas were a little bit more expensive than the Vespers? Okay. Just want to find that comment. Let's have a look. Okay. See no evil. Okay. You broke your wrist on the road plate. Oh, ouch. Hope it's all good. I hope you never had anything. Okay, apologies, Gerard. I was trying to find your comment. Good man. Thank you for that. Okay, so the Lamboretta was cheaper. Okay. Interesting. Right. That's good. So what I'm going to do now, we've covered that. I am going to, because I know you all like a bit of music. Here we go.
Ever since I was a young boy, I played the silver ball. From Soho down to Brighton, I must have played them all. But I ain't seen nothing like him in any amusement hall. That deaf dumb black kid sure plays a mean pinball. He stands like a statue, becomes part of the machine. Feeling all purpose, always playing clean. Plays by intuition, the digit counts and ball. That deaf dumb black kid sure plays.
Okay. Right. So now what I want to get, I'm going to go talk about the famous Battle of Brighton Beach. Okay, that was I've got a couple of articles that I want to go through with you all. So that is pretty much what everyone sort of associates with the Mods and Rockers rivalry. Okay, so the Mods and Rockers. Okay, so it was on the Whitsun weekend, the 16th to the 18th of May, 1964. The youth of Britain went mad. Now, if you believe the newspapers, that is, who went with screaming headlines like Battle of Brighton and Wild Ones beat up Margate. Okay. Editorials fulminated with predictions of national collapse, referring to the U's as those vermin and mutated locusts, wreaking untold havoc on the land. Whitsun 1964 has become famous as the peak of the Mods and Rockers riots. A large group of teenagers committed mayhem on the rain-swept streets of southern resorts like Margate, Brighton, Clacton and Bournemouth. Extensively photographed and publicised at the time, these disturbances have entered pop folklore, proudly emblemates on sites about mod culture and expensively recreated in the 1979 film Quadrophenia. Yeah, as ever, when you're dealing with the tabloid newspapers, things are not quite what they seemed. What was trumpeted was a vicious exercise in national degeneration, was to some extent pre-hyped by the press. They always pre-hype stuff. It was also not as all-encompassing as the headline suggested. Although an estimated 1,000 youths were involved in the Brighton disturbances, there were only 76 arrests. In Margate, there were an estimated 400 youths involved, with 64 arrests, while unpleasant and oppressive, this was hardly a teen takeover. The cycle had begun 6 weeks or so earlier during a dull, unseasonable cold Easter weekend, and up to 1,000 so young Londoners had descended on Clacton, a smallish resort of the English eastern coast. Bored with the bad weather and limited facilities, groups had separated according to their tribe. There were scuffles, stone throwing, and generally threatening appearances of teenagers en masse, barely restrained an underwhelming police presence. So on Easter Monday, the press went up with the story "Day of Terror" by scooter groups. Now, youngsters beat up town, 97 leather jacket arrests, and wild ones that invade seaside as typical press. Now, after a sensational write-up, the pack was prepared for the next bank holiday, and southern seaside resorts became the theatre. Contrasted with the enormity of the Clacton, it became the split along the stylistic and tribal lines between smart scooter riding, off-the-minute mods, and leather-jacketed scruffy rockers. The younger siblings of the early 60s, tone-up boys, Grease they were called, although they had long hair, longer than many mods, they were seen as throwback to Marlon Brando, the 1950s Teddy Boys. So Generation X, the relationship between the writers and the press was examined in Generation X, an influential piece of youth sociology, but now published in 1964 to capitalise the apparent turmoil of contemporary youth. This book began with a quote from John Barn, 18, a London mechanic, basically stating, "Yes, I am a mod, and I was at Margate. I'm not ashamed of it. I was the only one. I joined in a few of the fights. It was a laugh. I haven't enjoyed myself so much for a long time. It was great. And the beach was like a battlefield. It was like we were taking over the country. You want to hit back at all the old geezers who try and tell us what to do? We just want to show them we're not going to take it." So now the Whitsun 1964 disturbances announced the fact that the new generation was claiming its space and its time. As evidenced by interviews in Generation X, the early baby boomers were more confident, better educated, and more restless than their 1950s counterparts, the Edwardians. Later Teddy Boys, who become notorious for their combination of strange, exaggerated clothes and tendency towards extreme violence. Now, Generation X captured for the first time from within a separate youth world that took its cues from music and fashion. Now, as one interviewee observed, a lot of today's teenagers have ambitions to be the top dresser in the district. Another ambition is to play in a B group that was going to have some sort of fame. Films were still important as fantastic vehicles, but the public life of the 1960s teenagers was acted out in terms of mod clothes, blue beat music, and Soho clubs. Now, the modern rocker disturbances soon faded as other styles came into the youth culture prominence, but they set a pattern of the tribal violence that would continue on and off throughout the rest of the 1960s, which was the skinheads versus the hippies, and the 70s with the punks versus the Teds. And when the front cover of the Times European edition of in October 1983 showed a scary-looking mohawk punk with the cover strap of the Tribes of Britain inside. The lurid copy presented a country riven by the international youth culture battles. Now, the events of 1964 were also a textbook example of what the sociologist Jack Young termed as moral panic. Now, this idea was explored by Stanley Cohen in his groundbreaking study of the Mod Rockers riots. Now, folk devils and moral panics are conditioned episode person or some group of persons who emerge to become a threat to social values and interests. Its nature is presented in a stylized and stereotypical fashion by the mass media. Moral barricades and manned solutions are devised by experts and the episode phase or successfully dealt with. So what I'm going to do now is take this time now to share a video from the 60s so we can actually get a feel for what it was like. So I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay. So this was on Whitsun. Hello there, Suzanne. Hello there, Cranky. Thank you for coming. Yeah. As you can see now, you can get a feel for what it was like back then. Obviously, we know what to expect from the 1960s, the feel and the vibe. But you can see here now, this is the build-up. And there's, everything was like a rumour, like something, it was always blown out of proportion, but you get here now, that Punch and Judy shows, Christ. There we go, there's Brighton. Here we go. Yeah. Sorry to hear that as well, Cranky. I hope everything's well considering. There you go, we're all grouped up. To be young again, eh? This is, yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Right, let's get me that. Let's go. Just quickly want to make sure we're keeping in touch with you guys. Okay. Paul, sorry to hear that too. Okay. Right. So now I'm going to touch a little bit more on the Whitsun. Okay. So let's just go here. So this is basically taken from the BBC. So an article. So here we go. More than 1,000 teenagers were involved in skirmishes in Brighton. Now, a number of young people were given prison sentences following the Whitsun weekend of violent clashes between the gangs of mods and rockers in May 1964. Now, the mods wore, as we know, spiner suits protected by Parker jackets and were often armed with koshes and flick knives. Now, they rode Vespers or Lambretta scooters, bedecked with mirrors and mascots to listen to the ska music and The Who. Now, rockers rode motorbikes often at 100 miles an hour with no crash helmets, wore leathers and listened to the likes of Elvis and Gene Vincent. Now, for a few years in the early 1960s, the two British groups represented a sharp division in British youth culture. Their rivalry spilled over into violence, and the 1964 holiday weekend clashes of the South Coast outraged much of the nation. Now, a man here who was 19 years old at the time, he was a mod, and at the time of the scuffles in his hometown of Brighton, his father was a police officer in the town and warned him not to get involved in the violence. Now, he admits that the rebel and went along anyway to the beach, so he was rebelling anyway, and he was caught climbing up a lamppost by a police officer who was actually his father. Now, he felt that the press made the story worse than what it actually was, and the press over-reported the story. Now, what I'm going to do now is take this time as well to do some more. Okay, here we go. So, let's have a little listen. Okay. Right. So what I'm going to do now, I just want to go through the chat. I just want to go through because, okay. Okay. Now, I just want to use this chance as well. Hello there, Cinnamon Girl. Thank you for coming. I know that's good. It's good to see you. There we go. Many in the UK ride scooters year round as their only transportation. Yeah, I mean, there's still a love for bikes. Yeah, you still got certain things that still about. You'll still see the odd mod and rocker type people about, but it's, as I say, it's moved on quite a bit. So, I mean, what I'd generally say now is that was kind of James at the beach. I just thought I had to have Brighton Beach at the back of me as we were talking about it. So I just wanted to try and captivate the actual live itself. So what I'm going to do now as we know, look, the mods and rockers rivalry is not there as it used to be. They kind of, they get along now. It's not like it used to be in the 60s. So what we're going to do now, I'll give you a chance just in case if any of you want any more questions. I'm just going to.
Come on and dance. Tighten up, baby. Brighten up, lady. Come on up, come on and dance. Music sweet, and I wanna dance, but you don't wanna give me a chance. Girl, I want you to dance.
Okay, everyone. Okay. Yeah, Cranky. Yeah, we're praying for you. Sorry to hear about that. Oh, definitely Krumer. It was. I love some of the music, especially some of the mod stuff. But even as See No Evil was saying earlier, some of the like the 50s and 60s rock and roll was fantastic. Royal Enfield. So, do they retro type motorcycles? I must admit, you probably tell I'm not a motorcycle person, but obviously I had to do this as part of the life. But yeah, I mean, I've actually opened. I've learned a little bit just reading about this. Vespa is the required ownership in Italy, or you're not Italian. I can imagine because, as I say, a lot of the mod subculture came from France and Italy. Okay. Take regular fuel, yeah. Excellent. I've got some good input here from the chat, guys. I really appreciate it, and girls. Yeah, scooters make it easy to get around. I can imagine, but I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've been on the back of a bike once, and I'm scared of bikes. I'm a four-wheel person. Definitely four-wheel person. So as I say, the mods and rockers, they get on all well, and you know what, the mod subculture is gone far and wide. No, I don't. No, sorry. Oh, you won't catch me on a two-wheeler with an engine. We've on a dealership that sells wool. Oh wow! So, See No Evil. I'm assuming a Royal Enfield and Triumph. Then they're still quite renowned and used by a lot of people in the States. So, how many hours approximately like in a Vespa? I don't know. Gerard will be able to answer that question for you, Suzanne. He's a Vespa man. I'm a case person. Might try a trike though. So as I say as well, that the mod culture has gone far and wide. Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate that. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to play it. Saying I'm going to play this video of a group of mods. I think it's in India, but it just to show you how far and wide that it's gone.
Only love and make it rain the way the bee gets kissed by the sea. Only love and make it rain like the sweat of lovers laying in the field. Love, rain on me. Only love can bring the rain that makes you young to the sky. Only love can bring the rain that falls like tears from on high. Love, rain on me, rain on me, rain on me. Love, rain on me, rain on me, rain on me.
Brilliant. Right. Excellent. Do you need a motorcycle license for one? If you got a Harley Davidson. Oh wow. As I say, my auntie's husband, Graham, used to have a Harley. Had a beast of a bike. I like them. Okay. So the modern scooters have ABS brakes, traction control, and powerful fuel injected engines. Gerard, I needed you up here with me. You could have given a right in-depth analysis. It's good stuff. I appreciate this. Thank you, Dave T. Thank you. I really appreciate you all coming in, supporting. And it's been great as well because some of you have had stories to share as well, which was really good. Gerald can give his in-depth. And I'm very impressed at See No Evil's knowledge as well. And Il Toro, the bike riders. Thank you. Yeah, I love that song too as well, T-Do. Great to see you. Oh my God, there's a very heavy sound. Oh, dearie me. Thank you, Cinnamon Girl. It's been a pleasure. Delilah, thank you. You have a great weekend too. Brilliant. Right, folks. It's now. Thank you, Gerard. I really appreciate that. No, that's good. Just it sort of had a little impact in the history, and it's quite popular. Right. So, as I say, it's now 11 minutes past midnight where I am. I'm just going to go through a few more. Okay, Harley Davidson's a new dual sport called the Pan American. It's like they're being done. Okay. Wow. See, I'm learning things about you guys. You all, some of you, the bikers in you all. No, that's good. That's what I tried to do, Crewell. I wanted to do that just to make sure, it helps get the feel for what I'm talking about. I'm not the best of talkers in the world, but when I do, I can captivate with illustrations and music. You too, Paul. Pleasure, as always. Thank you, Tindu. Thank you. I really appreciate all your support. Okay. Well, the chat's going wild about talking bikes. I'm kind of half tempted to drop the link and have someone up on the panel if they want to talk. Good stuff. Okay. Right. Gerald, do you want to go up? I tell you that if Il Toro was still here, that would have been a great three-way conversation. Gerard, Il Toro, and See No Evil up here talking about their bikes. Good stuff. No, I really appreciate this. Right. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there then. Thank you, everyone. God bless.